That nursery life. The Mindful Mondays podcast with your host, Sam Green, on That Nursery Life.
It's great to have you with us as we head into another week brimming with possibility and potential. In this week's episode of the TNL Mindful Mondays podcast, we're taking a moment to pause and reflect on the magic of a child's brain. As early as 3 weeks following conception, a child's brain begins to take shape. By the 9th week of gestation, the brain has formed into a small, smooth structure which starts to produce the signalling chemicals that nerves use to communicate. Cells in the neocortex, the part of the brain that coordinates sight, conscious thought and language, begin to communicate. Astonishingly, research indicates that axons, one structure within brain cells, grow as much as 1 millimetre per day, more than twice as fast as the hair on your head can manage. Although human babies don't have the astonishing ability of many animals to get up and take some first wobbly steps within minutes of their emergence, their brains are already remarkable things. Perhaps the most remarkable is the fact that newborns' brains have all the neurons or brain cells that they'll ever have, and yet their brains are only about a quarter finished growing. All those neurons are like blank canvases sat side by side. It's only as the new little human starts to experience the world around them that those neurons start to grow the spindly connections to one another called synapses. In fact, between birth and a child's second birthday, they'll grow these neural connections at such an extreme pace that afterwards they experience the delightfully termed synaptic pruning, as their still-growing brains work to organise and rationalise all the connections they've made into a more efficient system. The more I think about it, the more unfathomably brilliant a child's brain is. Things which we do without consciously thinking are, when you scratch the surface, so complex and clever that even trying to think about them is hard work. Take talking as an example. Leaving aside the fact that it's only thanks to hundreds of adult brains that the technology exists for you to hear this podcast, just the process of my getting these words out is mind-blowing. One part of my brain is deciding what I want to say and near instantaneously pulling the words from my memory. Meanwhile, other parts of my brain are exercising extraordinarily precise control over muscles in my chest so that small bursts of air can be released in such a way that my larynx, tongue and teeth can use them to form sounds which mean something to you. To do that with nearly 30 years' practice is one thing, but the fact that children in their first years of life rapidly learn to do it, at the same time as learning everything else, is truly staggering. Of course, the reason that developing speech is something young children learn so rapidly is because speech is central to how the brain in their head can start interacting with the brains in the heads of those around them. Those of us with the privilege to spend time working in early years settings witness the beautiful process of a child learning about who me is by forming relationships with you. The human mind is built to be part of a community of minds, and the first large community that many young minds will encounter is your early years setting. I don't know about you, but that thought puts circle time into a whole different context for me. By the time a child's brain is 1,000 days old, it is coming to the end of the most hectic and intense period of its entire life. As far as the brain is concerned, the subsequent 70 or 80 years are the downhill stretch after the near vertical learning curve at the start. I described at the beginning how the brain starts out as a smooth, round organ long before it develops those characteristic ridges and valleys of a fully formed mind. That image is pretty good as a representation of the inside of the brain too. The imprints made on a child's mind during this initial period of growth represent the most fundamental quirks and features of a new personality. A personality which will go on to experience a unique journey through life. How lucky are we that we spend our working lives as early years professionals knees deep in this miracle of growth and development. Those poor schmucks sat at desks all day, sending emails about emails. They really don't know what they're missing. So let's tread carefully this week. Each interaction with a child is another footprint in the most squishy of memory foam, and deserves to be left with care. Have a good week.
For the latest in early years news, tools, support and best practice, why not go to www.thatnurserylife.com.